Good morning. I knew it was close. I knew it was close again. I got to put a little bit more time into my intro. I think I need about 15 more seconds when I'm over there clicking and tapping and turning everything on there at the last minute. But good morning. I am Bradley McCalister. It is Monday Methods, and we're off to a wonderful day here. It's nice and cool here in Georgia, and I'm hoping everybody has a good time. Looking forward to this. I think I have everything turned on, but I see a mouse key, but you won't see that, so that's okay. Never mind me sometimes. No, you will see that. So let me go fix something in that computer over there that is showing an arrow in the middle of the screen. I do believe it's going to be showing there. No, or maybe that's just my own computer. Hang on, I'm not sure. Let me double check this real quick just to be sure. It's just me. It's just me. Let's see. Arthur Miller's in here. Yes, Arthur, thank you for the very cool of my intro. Like I said, I think I need to add about 15 seconds, maybe 20 seconds to it, because by the time I hit stream, turn the streams on, hit enter for good morning, open up my Facebook page, I'm running just slightly out of time. I think I made another sliding entry like I did last week. But good morning, Art. Good morning, Larry. It's good to see you guys. It is a nice day. It's nice and cool out. I actually had to take the epoxy resin in today. Good morning, Mark. Good to see you. I forgot and left my epoxy resin out here in the shop overnight. And, it was about 50 degrees, which isn't cold to us. But resins are peculiar, and it actually, I did the same thing. Same thing happened to me when I was casting this piece up the other day. I had forgotten to warm the resin up to around 70, 72, so I put it in the house, turned on the heat, not that it really needed it, laid it over the vent, and warmed it up. So hopefully it will pour a little bit better today. Good morning, Frank. Nice to see you. That's a new name, and let's see, there's... good morning from New Jersey. I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce Bididi. Lands in here. We're going to have fun today. If I pronounce your name wrong because I haven't seen it before, accept my apologies. I'm only so fast at reading new names. Lots of fun today. Got a couple interesting things that have happened, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And as I've talked about, and you've read, we have specials today. Get the sales pitch out of the way a little bit. Everything that I'm going to use today, the epoxy resins, the resin tints, the pearl powders, stabilizing resin, vacuum chambers, vacuum pump. The discount codes are in the group, in the new group, which of course now all of a sudden I have a brain lapse. It must be what happens when you hit 60. In the Spirocraft Monday Methods Wood and Resin Turning Community Group. There, I knew it would come to me if I thought about it long enough. Good morning, Lorianne. So the discounts are there. It's 15% off the Chromacraft products, 5% off on the vacuum chambers and resins, etc., the stabilizing resin and the pump, and all those good things. So if you're looking for a bargain, today's the day. It lasts all day for that. So I started last week, you saw the pictures of what was the long log, like so, and I cut it into 3 sections, which are now represented. One ready to turn, it's actually been a little rough turned. One has had nothing been done to it other than drying, and one that has been dried and stabilized. So I'll take you through all the processes today of stabilizing, casting, preparing to cast this one, stabilizing it, preparing to cast, casting it, turning this piece. Now, one little thing I have to throw out to you, because, just life, it just isn't easy enough. Something always has to throw us a curve. So when I was when I was stabilizing this piece over the weekend, on Sunday morning, I went out to pull a vacuum on it one more time before I threw it into the oven and cook it yesterday. Well, when I first started stabilizing, which has been about 2 years maybe now, getting close to, I wasn't sure much about it, didn't know anything about it. And so like so many people, I went to that store that we all kind of sort of go to if we admit it. And I went to Harbor Freight and I bought a vacuum pump at Harbor Freight. And even though Spirecraft sells the Best Value vacuum pumps, I've always been using a Harbor Freight. I figured it would wear out one day. I figured I would burn it up. Well, on Sunday, that day came. And so my vacuum pump quit on me, which means I don't have it to use today to show you the bubbling of the stabilizing resin. Because I'm also currently out of stock, but I got to order more. And now I definitely have to order more because I need another pump. So I'll be bringing more of the Best Value vacuum pumps in. So I won't be able to pull a vacuum today in the pot, but I have queued up a former episode of Monday Methods where you do see the process, and I'm going to try and run that on the big screen in the back here in just a little bit. Okay? So that was my everything was going so good this weekend until my pump quit. But, you know, what are you going to do, right? So how the process starts is I took this piece of really ratty wood, if you remember it, like I showed it here. This is a pecan tree limb. It's limb wood, and it's rotten. I mean, it's rotten, it's bug-eaten. There's not much to it. And I said, perfect, this is just what I like. So to stabilize a piece of wood for this process, the first thing we have to do is dry it. We have to remove all the moisture. So I put it in the oven at 200 degrees. I had cut it into 3 pieces. I put it into the oven at 200 degrees, and I cooked it for about 18 hours, somewhere in there. The piece was really wet, but it's also super, super punky. So I didn't bother even to weigh this one. Typically, the question always is when you're drying a piece to stabilize it, how do you know when it's the theoretical 100% no moisture or zero moisture? Well, when it quits losing weight on a digital scale, that's how you know. So you weigh it when you start, keep checking it, and when it quits losing weight, and it's interesting, especially if you live here where it's humid, if you cook it until it quits losing weight and then you set it out for a day, it will pull moisture back into it. So a lot of folks will put them in a Ziploc bag if they're not going to get it right into the stabilizing chamber. I just take them from the house, and by the time I walk over from the house out here to the shop, because I was cooking these in the big oven, they're not messy when they're just pieces of wood. They've cooled off enough, and I drop them right into the stabilizing resin. So what's important is that we dry this to a 0 moisture content, drop it into our stabilizing resin, and we go from there. Now, I do have a stabilizing chamber sitting here. I actually brought the pump over too, but not that I can let go. Hose or cord. Vacuum chamber, and this is one of the smaller ones. This is a 2-gallon vacuum chamber. I don't have any resin in this one, again, because I can't turn the pump on. So I didn't bother to put the resin in. But what we would do is after we've dried it, I'd take our wonderful piece of wood. Now you can use clear stabilizing resin. You can dye the stabilizing resin. The batch that I'm running has got a little bit of a red tint from a homemade dye that I used some powdered dye that I had as an experiment. And that batch I've just about used up. This piece will probably complete that. It doesn't really dye it red like I wanted it to, but since I had the investment in the resin, I've just been using it till it's been used up. But it goes into, you put it into the pot, whether your resin is clear or dyed, and be sure you follow the directions closely on how much dye you put into resin. You don't want to overdo it or it can affect the resins. Drop her into your pot. Make sure you can see that. Drops in. You can either put it in and then add the resin or have the resin already in there. Now, it's going to want to float. And over in the other shop, I didn't bring it over because it's all wet and drippy. I have a metal grate, if you will, that I put on top of the piece of wood, and I put a weight on it, which happens to be an old chuck, because the piece of wood is going to want to try and float up. So you weight it down with whatever you've devised. Hey, my dad's in here. Good morning, Dad. Put your lid on. You would hook up your pump hose. Doesn't matter to hook up a dysfunctional one. We'll have your hose, or you would already have your hose hooked up. Okay, and then we would, once the connections were made, we would flip the pump on. And what we want to watch for, and I can show you in this one easy, I'm going to disconnect this hose again. It will foam a whole bunch at first. And I'll show you this in the video, and hopefully this video plays, especially if my little remote works. It'll foam up a bunch. Now, these chambers that I have here have the inlet outlet or the vacuum exchange outlet right on the side. These glass vac, and don't ever get one of these kind of pots that looks like this with a plastic lid. There was recently a YouTube video of a guy who had a different brand, and it had a plastic lid, looked just like this, but it was plexiglass or something, or PVC. I'm not sure what the plastics are, and if it exploded and just shattered. These glass ones are great. They don't do that. I can't guarantee that personally, that they shouldn't ever explode. And that's why there's no hole drilled in it, and that's why the hole is on the side. So what's important, and let's see if I can turn this to where you can see. There we go. So right here is the inlet for the vacuum. When the foam starts to rise up in the chamber, you don't want it to go in that hole. If it sucks into your pump, and that's not what happened to this pump, it still pulls a little bit of vacuum, but not much. And so it still runs. It's not frozen up or anything, so I don't know what happened to it. But you want to make sure that the foam doesn't go into the hose and over to your pump. A lot of people will run a secondary chamber, like a resin catch, reservoir, to make sure they don't pull any resin into their pump, because the pumps are subject to damage if you get the resin in there. And like Best Value Vacs recommends not running a long vacuum without a trap. Otherwise, you'll be pulling some vapors of some of the different brands of stabilizing resin into the pump, and you run a risk of hurting it. So when you turn on the vacuum, you start watching that. And again, I'm going to try and show this video here in a second. You can bleed with this valve right here on the side. So if the foam starts to come up too much, you open that vacuum up, bleed that foam back down a little bit, and it only takes a couple of times typically. That initial one will foam a lot, and then it'll settle down, okay? And then the idea is you pull a vacuum on it until it doesn't bubble anymore. Now, one of the things that's so important about getting the moisture out is if it's not completely dry, if there's moisture in the wood, and if you were here, you may remember when I showed the bubbling water on the big wall. And if not, go to one of the Monday methods. I don't have it off the top of my head which episode it is. And I showed a video on how what happens is water boils at 70 or 72 degrees under vacuum. So if there's moisture in your piece of wood, you turn on the vacuum, the moisture is going to boil, and it's going to bubble and bubble and bubble and bubble. It's not air bubbles you're seeing, it's actually moisture coming from the boiling water. So the idea is to get all the moisture out and completely saturate the wood with the resin. And you can tell when it stopped. And also, it's recommended, it's universally accepted to soak it for at least as long as you pulled the vacuum on it. So once you've pulled the vacuum on your piece of wood, just leave it in the chamber or leave it in another pot of stabilizing resin and just let it soak for a day or two. It can't hurt it at all, okay? So let's see if my little experiment this morning will work. And I'm going to change the screen and see if I can play. I've got this YouTube video queued up just about at the point where it goes and you can see the foam coming up. So let's see how this works. I don't make any guarantees. Cross your fingers, because I'm trying to drive a computer that's over in the room over there behind the stud wall at the moment with my little handy dandy remote. So I'm going to switch you to the queued up. And I won't be able to see this in real time, so I will have to hope for the best. I will watch it on my screen here. And if I do it right, let's see here. Otherwise, I'll run over there. Let's see if it goes to the right spot, or did I take it back to the beginning? Oh, shoot, I took it to the beginning. And I had that all set up. So since I'm going to have to jump around a little bit, let me run into the control room and just get it. I figured I wouldn't be so lucky. we'll find it here in a second. I went through all the trouble to get it all ready right there. And then I still haven't quite figured out how to drive the computers from afar with this guy. But I'm working on it. Yep. I got the pump over here. Okay, so I'm reaching over and turning on the pump. It's kind of noisy. And it's starting to pull the vacuum. And you can see the bubbles coming on. Close the valve, and there you see the foam starting up. And you can see the gauge going up, I'm sure. And as that foams and bubbles, I'm watching to make sure. And now I open that valve and broke the vacuum so that the foam wouldn't get sucked into the hose going to the vacuum pump. And it went right down. And you just watch that, so that I don't get close to my inlet. And it doesn't take long before fiercely that initial blast of air coming out of the wood gets settled down. And then you can just leave it unattended. It won't give you a problem. And then you break your vacuum. And you'll see it doesn't take terribly long. And if you see the gauge there in the bottom, you can drop it down to 0 vacuum, and then it goes back around. With more air in this than I thought. The vacuum that you can pull at your elevation. I'm surprised. But the initial like say, once it becomes bubbling doesn't last stable that long. It'll calm down pretty quick. Good. Now I need to change the oil in my pump. There's two things that can make you get the smoke. You'll start to see a little bit of smoke in here. When you stop the vacuum pump, dirty oil and a vacuum leak, and I'm probably getting a little bit of a vacuum leak. And also, once you leave my seals being bad on my hose, closed, you turn off the pump, they're starting to go. And there's a vacuum in the chamber. I'm only pulling 20. Static. So you can soak it that way, but it's not actually pulling on the end. When the hose was fresh, this would pull a full 29 here, because I'm at 200. No, I'm at 180 feet above sea level. If you let it soak under vacuum or not. Because it's so you see, as I broke that vacuum, the bubbles completely went away. Any effect on it? Okay. And you can see there that foaming it's doing less and less, and the foam is gone now. It just makes some bubbles. So that's pretty well under control. And you'll run your vacuum until it stops bubbling, and hopefully that if you decide you want to stop sooner, you can. I like to cycle mine. Because Best Value Vax recommends not running more than 5 minutes without a cold trap. So that's cool. To stop the vapors, because this is creating a vapor that is. Anyway, so you see that, and then that is how the stabilizing process. But see, once I bled that off, and I know you can't see where you go with it. The inlet. Do that until let that pump run. I cycle mine about every 10 minutes. A couple times. I don't have any fear now of it into the pump. And it doesn't typically take me that long, and I don't run big, heavy, thick pieces of wood like a lot of folks do. Again, I wish I could get a little bit more, but I know my seals are leaking. So if you have a real large block of wood that's dense, on there, it may take longer for it to stop bubbling. Again, most of what I do is pretty soft, and see if we just got a little bit more absorbs the resin and pulls the air out pretty quickly. Okay. All right. So instead of going on and on with this thing running like this, that's the general idea there. No, that's the premise. Now I have to watch. You're down to the simmering stage now. We'll put our piece aside. Now, if anybody's got any questions about that stage of getting the piece, filling up the room, try it in the oven. So I can into the vacuum chamber, turning on the vacuum with the resin in it, bleeding off. And I can leave that vacuum on. Now, here's one thing that happens. It gets stabilized. Go ahead and shoot me a question in the comment column there. I'd be happy to answer any kind of questions there. If it's not leaking. So that guy, it's off and it's doing its thing in the right spot. The next thing we do it's static. Is we take our piece. So it's not really pulling anymore, but it is soaking. And so I think you need to have it be active. These are full of holes and have the pump running so that it keeps pulling the vacuum and pulling that air out. Right now it's out of vacuum, but it's at a static state. Kind of strange. And it's not moving. But it's soaking into the fibers, and that's fine. And most folks will soak for several days after they've got all the bubbles out. I guess that sound was coming through because I can't hear what the other side is. Should that be better now? I didn't realize that you were getting the audio from the video that was playing. Well, we got that fixed now. Yes, we do indeed, because we stopped the video. Y'all tell me to make sure that I did stop the video and that you're not getting 2 soundtracks anymore. That's the downside to not having an earpiece and hearing what's going on. So we've got it stabilized. The next thing we do is we put it back in an oven. Now here I cook it in another oven over in the shop, because don't cook your stabilizing resin in the oven in the house. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, guys. I didn't realize I had that they were getting audio from the video there. Next time, I'll just let my other self talk. So I was talking over myself. My apologies on that one. Put this in the oven, and we need to cook this at approximately 200 degrees, 190 to 210, depending on what the manufacturer of the resin you're using recommends. And we need to cook it until it has cooked to that temperature all the way into the center of the piece. All right? There's a little bit of a mystery to me that if you don't cook it long enough and you try again, it won't make a difference. So I went ahead and cooked these for about 4 hours, this one and this one. So they've cooked plenty long. Now this piece is so fragile. When I cut the tail on the bandsaw today, I know that the resin's in there and it's all cured. But some of this is really fragile up here, so it's not super hard, because this is a really decayed piece of wood, but makes it still pretty cool. So cook that in your oven. A lot of people use toaster ovens, smokers. If you got a regular home oven, you put it in your workshop, a 220, you'll save a lot of energy. And cook it until you're sure that it has reached the 200 degrees inside the center of the wood. Put tin foil down. Some people wrap things in tin foil. That's just to contain the resin. Put a drip tray with the tin foil in it, whatever, and just let that guy cook. And then it's ready to go. So now this piece today that we're going to cast, I thought about this, and I'm going to do it to the other piece. If I had thought about it sooner, because this has got so much openness to it, it would be fun to paint iridescent paints in here and get a look. So that's what I'll do with the next one. But this one, I didn't have time to do that. This guy's the last thing I'm going to do today is turn this. So the first thing, I want to go ahead and turn this. This is my molds. Right, I'm just using a 32-ounce deli cup, and this one has already got the mold release in it. So this is too big for the mold. So I want to take you through the process of how I did this one, and we're going to turn this piece enough to get it in our mold, and we'll get it in the mold. We'll mix up our resin. We'll pour our resin, and today this epoxy resin from Chromacraft has a 2-hour open time. Now, if you want very distinct multiple colors, you want to wait until that resin is getting pretty close to its gel time so that it doesn't migrate. In this case, I want the most time for it to have a chance to soak into all the little tunnels before it starts to gel. So I'm not going to worry so much about keeping colors separate. I might actually just do one single color, very translucent today with this. So we'll mix the resin up, and we're going to go ahead and pour it and mold it, and then I'm going to keep adding resin, and I'll keep watching it throughout the episode here today until it's soaked up all the resin that I can get it to take. Okay? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chuck this guy up, and I just need to hold on to it enough to get it to fit over the cup. And I've got 2 cups. I got another one that doesn't have the mold release in it. So that's going to be my tester. And this is a big Nova Titan. And if I run this guy all the way out, I can just get this piece in there. I tested it this morning. I had to fight with it a little bit. Hey, Corey. How you doing? So I may adjust this a little bit. This will be kind of messy. This one's going to be interesting. I don't believe the tailstock is going to do me a bit of good on this. I'm kind of looking in through here to make sure that I'm turning pretty well on the center axis, and I am. Now this piece, like I said, it's been completely, stabilized, but it's such a fragile, frail piece of wood that it's probably going to blow apart a little bit here and there. And this thing is full of holes. I mean, it's a really cool piece. It's full of holes, tubes, channels. The bugs had a field day on this thing. It's just rotten. You can see this is really, really soft, but it makes for a lot of character. And that's what I'm after. That's what I really want to see. And I'm going to move this over, move my headstock over just a little bit like that for you. And so I'm going to go very gingerly and gently with the tool, with a very light touch, very light cut to cut this piece. And I'm just going to fit it to the cup and then a little bit smaller. Now, when I made the, back to the front here for a second, when I made this piece and I dropped it in the cup, I thought I left enough room around, and I actually cut it a little bit too tight. So this one today, I'm going to cut a little bit looser. I did have a little trouble getting the resin all the way down around it. So I've got a couple of tubes in it, it's actually little holes that are in there, but that actually just lends to the piece. So today, this one I had kind of made, I wanted it to be closer to a press fit, and I learned that wasn't the best choice for me to make. This is the first time I've used this technique of turning them to fit in my mold, if you will. Okay. Now I'm going to try not to have this thing explode on me as I turn on it. And the best view is probably going to be the overhead. So we'll start there. I'm not going to turn it very fast because I don't want to break it. I'm going to turn it about 7. It's about 725. Let's go for about 750. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to actually take the EasyWood Tools #1 hollower, and even though I've got the negative rate cutter on it for the resin later, I want a nice unaggressive cut here. So the #1 hollower from EasyWood Tools is one of my favorite tools anyway. The negative rate cutter. So I'm going to take a nice light, easy cut on this, real small. Get my mask on. Take one more quick sip of water here real quick. That should be looking okay in the camera view for you. It's about the roughest, crazy little piece I've ever turned before. Or shall we say attempted to turn, because we're not quite sure what's going to happen here just yet. But I'm going to come in on this nice and easy. I don't want to use a square roughing tool. I mean, this is me personally, because I want to take a really light cut on this. And also you'll notice that I'm going to stand off to the side. Not that this is anything here is horrible going to fly. I got my face mask on, but I'm still not going to stand right here with a piece that looks like this. So make sure that I stay out of the way. And I'll start tapering this down. And I have to decide which do I want to be the top and which do I want to be the bottom. So I can go either way here. I could have this be the top in the mold, or I can have it be the bottom in the mold. And it's easier, well, actually I don't really have a choice. It's going to be the bottom the way I'm doing it. I don't have a choice in this one. I was incorrect when I made that statement. So this will be the bottom. No way around that in this particular piece. I don't know what I was thinking when I said that. Never mind. Pay no attention to me sometimes. Now as I turn this, I can smell the stabilizing resin. So I know that it is stabilized. I mean, this piece is pretty strong considering the condition it's in. Now I want to be really careful out here because I see one chunk coming off. And I want to keep it as intact as possible. And from the end, I'll give you an end view here as well. The cool thing about all this is there's a million different ways you could go about molding this up. I just like to use these thick cups that I already have around. I kind of know the volumes to a degree. You could, I mean, you can do this in a square, rectangular mold. But again, I'm trying to utilize my resin resource to the best of my ability from an economy standpoint. I don't want to use any more resin than I have to. See how we're doing here. So we're starting to get pretty close up in there. And you can see the wood is pretty nice. It's pretty up in here. All these holes and voids, and we'll see in the next piece as I turn how it goes. This one, like I say, it's going to have a big void here, so that's going to be all resin. So that's why I think I'm going to leave it kind of translucent today. And also, if I decide I can cut, if I want to, I can cut some of this end off if I don't want that all the way down in there. Okay, we're getting there. Again, I like to just kind of work my way up on it nice and slow. I know most people would think I'm crazy, you know, they would just have thrown this away. So good. So we're almost getting our fit now where we want it. I'm almost to the very bottom. That would be down to the tenon. When you see right here, if I go to the end camera, you can see how that's just about into the tenon. And I can make this any way I want. I'm a little tight right in this section, right in here. What am I going to do about what's left in the chuck? I'm going to throw it over on the counter and not think about it. Which camera we were on the end? Sorry for the reach. So this is what was left over in the chuck from the previous piece. All right. I'll part this off. I'll part through here and cut this down to where it's shorter than the top of the cup. Does that make sense, Frank? So I'll have a little bit of extra waste here. Now this could become something else. This is a whole other project waiting to happen right there. All right, so let's take a little bit more out of this, and I think I may go ahead and switch over to a little radius, kind of a square cutter. It may be a mistake on this, as frail as it is, but I'll get a little bit flatter style cut. And I'm going to turn the speed up a little bit. This will just make it a little bit smoother. And granted, by the time you're done turning the whole thing, okay, that's looking pretty good. So I want to take a little bit of the very bottom off of here, because I want to go a little bit further up into the top here. So I'll just keep the same little square. It's actually a radius cutter. I'll shape that. And now I'm going to come down here and take some of this end off, and I'm going to switch back to the small round cutter, because I want the lightest cut I can get because I don't want to break it, but I do want to cut some of this off here on the end. And you can just barely see that. I'm not sure how the end camera shows up. I'm going to flip over to the end camera and wait just a few seconds. Hey Joe, how you doing? Thanks for coming in today. Let's see if you can see this. No, you can't quite see that, so it's a little too long. I'll go back to the overhead for you. And I'm just going to gently come in here and shorten this guy up. Okay. I actually don't mind if this hangs free in the bottom, because it's going to, I want the resin to be a nice, the tenon is going to be down here. So that gives me a tenon area there, like so. And I'm actually going to cut, I want to cut the wood back to right about here. So I'm going to go a little, I don't have much left to work with here, because I still need to leave myself room to part this thing off. Actually, let me take a parting tool and make my line. Okay, so that's where it's going to get parted at. And I need to know that this will actually sit down about that far. If you can see, because I want to use this line, because I'm going to show you how I hold it in place and make myself a little holder. And I still need to take a little bit more out of right in here. All right, it's still holding me up a little bit. One of the beauties of stabilizing a piece of wood is you can turn something that you would have never been able to turn otherwise. See, it's distorting my cup right here, and it's tight right in through here still. So I need to take a little bit more out of it. Now you can turn the craziest piece of wood once you've stabilized it, because it's essentially wood plus resin, or in this case resin plus wood. So you can get away with a whole lot. Still kind of goes in there. It's kind of funny how it goes a little sideways on me in there. What am I hitting? I'm hitting that right there. Okay. Believe it or not, we're going to take a little bit more out down in here, because I don't want it to deform the mold. Right up to my parting line. Okay, now I'm getting happy. And I've got about the amount of the tenon there. I can see that when it drops down into the tenons, I need to still come down in here about 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to take another 1/4 off the bottom here. Shorten this length up just about another 1/4 of an inch. And see, I got to be sure, because once I part it off, I can't turn it again anymore to test that fit. So I've got plenty of room at the top. This section right in here still concerns me. I may not have enough taper right here, because there's so little there that I can see how my taper isn't a continuous. The taper is not on the same pitch. So let me take a little bit out of this right here. That should have done the trick. Okay, I think I'm happy now. And the last thing to do is to go ahead and part through this guy with the parting tool. And I'm using the Carter & Son 16th inch parting tool here. It is my favorite parting tool. Now I'm getting pretty close here. I don't know just how, I can't imagine this is super strong. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the speed way down. Now normally I would catch these, but because it's got so many little chips and divots on it, I'm just going to let it gently. I've turned down to about 500 RPMs. I'll go a little bit further, then I'll turn it down even some more. Okay, that's just about through. So that's down around 400. And there we go. So it didn't go flying crazy or anything like that. All right, cool beans. That wasn't too much of a mess, too dusty, a little bit, but not horrible. Now we'll test it and make sure, see if I messed up or if it's going to fit like I want it to. Oh, I love when computers want to update in the middle of things. Let's see how that does. That's perfect. That is right where I want it. I will show you in the overhead. You see how I have this, say, 1/4 inch section right here? So it's just below that. That's my reservoir, if you will. And also where what I'm going to do here is I'm going to poke through. This is a bamboo skewer, shish kebab skewer, right? And I'm going to poke that through right at the very top, right up in here. Go through this side and out through that side. It's going to do two things. If this were to try to float, it shouldn't, but sometimes they might want to. It would help hold it down, and also it gives me a little handle because I'm going to have this guy completely full of resin. So when I pick this up to put it in the vacuum chamber, I can pick it up by these two edges right here, okay, by the pole. So it makes me a little handle at the same time. All right? Okay. So that's the deal. That's going to work. I'm happy with that. Now, it's going to take more resin. This piece, here's an interesting thing. If you saw my post about it, same mold was used. And this obviously filled the cup up a whole lot more. Now, you could do it, but it'd take a bit of work to try and calculate the volume that we're going to need of resin. So this, as you can see, filled that up pretty well, other than the one void right in here. And this is a 32-ounce cup, and that took 18 ounces of resin to do this. And I usually make it looks like about 15 to 18. So we'll see how this goes. I'm going to need a little extra, so I will make a little extra resin when I make my pour up in my little cups. To have enough resin, and if I need to make a little extra, then I'll make another little batch to finish this off. So anybody got any kind of questions so far? Everybody hanging with me on what we're doing here, what's going on? And also speaking about the piece that's left over, so here it is, kind of like the other one, just this nice little piece. This could be another cast in a different kind of mold. Get something pretty cool out of it. Make an end coaster. Definitely don't throw it away. I would cast it again in a heartbeat. Might save it. And if I had made a mistake or made a little too much resin, I would recast this thing. Oops, sorry, right away. Because it's ready to go. Okay? So we're going to put those guys off to the side. That's my piece. Now the next thing I'm going to do is make my holes for my skewer. Well, you guys know that follow me. I love my ice pick that my dad gave me. And so I ice pick a hole through this guy. Right at the very top. And come over to the other side. All right, and do the same thing. So there's my hole for my barbecue skewer. Does a great job. Nice snug fit. So that'll be my handle, just like that. All right. So here's our piece. Now it's ready to go in. Drops in. Take my skewer, run it through its holes, and I'm ready to go. And I'll show you an overhead view of that. Overhead. Yeah, table salt would do it. That would get in everything. And so it definitely would work. So my skewer's a little off center. But Steve, you're right. You know, I was afraid with this, with so much, with so many holes, if I use the rice or something like that, I might end up getting something stuck in there. So that would be, that's a good way to do it. This one I'm just going to, make hopefully enough. And if I need a little bit extra, I will make a little bit extra. Yeah, Zach Higgins, he just recently did one on rice. He did a little, hit one of his live streams in rice, using rice, and to get your volumes figured out. Okay. So I'm going to come over here and get a couple of cups. I'm just a creature of my own habits. I use my yogurt cups, which I think you'll be able to see there if I move that out of the way. These are 5 ounces, and I have 2 choices. I can fill to the low. There's a mark in here. I love free, if I don't have to go out and spend a bunch of money on molds. So you've got this line, or I can go to the very top. Today I'm going to go to the very top, okay? So we can leave that there, and that's out front. And I think you can still see those. No, you have to go to this camera. There we go, for you. Okay. This is my hardener, my B component. And I'm going to go ahead and go right to the top because I want a little extra resin today. And these are just make it easy because I eat yogurt every morning. And it's usually because I use these cups for many of these, small demonstration projects. Now, when I do something bigger and I know I need more resin, I use a meter cup. Now, this one is from Ace. It has ounces on it, but it doesn't have the ratio. I actually like the ratioed meter cups, so I'll use those for bigger projects. And hopefully I warmed this up enough today that it won't be too difficult to pour out. It's definitely better than the other day. And we'll see when I fill these up to the top and then we put it in our mixing cup just exactly what I get ounces wise. And I got a feeling I might end up needing just a little teeny bit more because of that big void. I might end up needing more than a teeny bit more. And if that's the case, well, so be it. And I'll make another batch and then maybe just cast up one of those little pieces. I'll grab some. I got a little something around here somewhere. And I don't know if Asim is in here. Awesome. Asim, I always call him. I'm still working on Asim's name. He was asking me last week, I think it was, how did I clean my egg beater stirrer? And I said, well, once it gets gummed up, I don't. I just throw it away. And I go to the dollar store and buy another one, or Ollie's. And so I went to Ollie's over the weekend and the dollar store, and neither of them had them actually in stock at the moment. So, I mean, they had them, but they were $7.99. I'm not about to pay $7.99 for a mixer, so I've got just a good old paint stick today. Put a little something here on my lathe bed, just so that I can not make a huge mess. And I will mix this all in this cup, and then I'll split the resin back out. Especially when I do multiple colors, and I need another one of my little stir sticks here. And so I'll stir it again. I'll double stir it or double mix it, if you will. I forgot to bring one of my popsicle sticks over here. I'll be right back. Let me give you an overhead, or there we go for a second. I thought I had everything I needed at hand this morning, but obviously I don't always have everything right at hand. All I want to do here is I want to scrape this out, get all the resin out of there. Chromacraft is generous enough. They provide me the resin for the demonstrations, but I don't waste it. I use every little bit of it. And I've been really happy with this epoxy resin, especially being down here in the south where it's humid. The resin works great. I don't have any problems with the humidity, anything like that. Now I'm thinking about a little turquoise, just a very light turquoise, a translucent turquoise pour on this today with probably an iridescent gold, possibly pearl powder. I'm still thinking on that, what I want to do. For my colors. So let's just say we have 24, so I'm a few ounces bigger than the last one. Might still be a little short when we go to pour all this. And I may change my mind and do multiple colors. In this one is turquoise, white, and yellow, and a couple different pearls. You know, it looks like the yellow is the dominant color in here in that one. But I do like pouring them off and mixing again because you never know what you've got down in the bottom. And if not, I might pour this off into another 32-ounce cup if I've got one in here. But I think I probably will go ahead and do some different colors in this now that I think about it. How's the time looking? Our time is 12 o'clock, so we've been at this about an hour, so we should be fine. Don't know what I'm going to turn out of this other guy yet. Haven't quite decided. All right, I'm going to leave these up here on the rubber mat, and I am going to pour these off. Which will leave a little bit, because I'm going short in these little containers, leave a little extra clear in here. Not much. And we'll save that one over there. I got a feeling we're going to be back to that here before too terribly long. And like I said, I know I want to do turquoise, and these colors are going to be super faint. So let's just go here. It doesn't take... And I'll put this underneath the camera here for you. That's just a drop or two in there. And all I want is a little hint of color. Now this is not a water clear, it is an amber. So I do need enough to get it colored. A little bit more. And again, by pouring it off out of the bigger cup, out of the bigger mixer, it's getting all mixed again very well in here. I don't know where that came from. This resin's been around a while. Has a little chunk in it. Little teeny bit more in that color. There we go. Yeah, it's starting to show some color there now. And I'm going to put a little pearl powder in here. A little bit of iridescent gold. Put a little more resin in this cup than I actually wanted to, which makes the stir part harder. All right, and I'm going to let that one sit. And let's see. Bring over the next one. Actually, I'm changing my mind here. That's jet black. And I'm actually going to add a tint of this black. I love making it up as I go sometimes. I'm on the front camera. Okay. Thank you, Art. Appreciate the heads up. I get lost and confused sometimes, as you guys well know. This black, which won't be very dark, and these colors are going to blend together, will help with making the iridescence have a little something to reflect off of. And I'm going to go with the gold again. Mark says, when using stabilizer, what is left over that can be reused, or is it wasted? No, you can use the stabilizing resin time and time again. It doesn't go bad. I leave it right in my chamber because I've usually got something going. You can pour it back in the jug that it came in. Store it in the plastic jugs that they come in. Don't put it in a glass jar, or it will set up. It's a weird thing. But you can use whatever doesn't get absorbed into the piece of wood, assuming it doesn't get contaminated to a color that you don't want to work with. I put a piece of rainbow poplar in one time, and a lot of the colors leached out of the poplar into the resin and actually colored the resin. And so that's why that batch that I've been using, I had about 1.5 gallons, 2 gallons of it mixed going in a pot. I went ahead and added the red dye to it, the red dye powder, because it had already turned kind of a brown. It leached out of the poplar. All right. So no, you can reuse it. And if you leave it clear, then it's all the same. It's all good. And that's white and yellow. I'll go with the yellow in this. And in the yellow, just for fun, I'm going to put a little bit of iridescent red. And over into my stir stick. which should give me an interesting color. Okay, so it looks like the first one needs a little more stirring. I like to stir them and let them sit. And that's one of the things. I know a lot of folks work with Alumilite, and you've got 7.5, 15 minutes. I like the extra time to work and talk. So my question here is, where are you going to see this best pour? Out front, or in the overhead, or in the side view? I'm looking for the best where you can see it. Probably not close enough for you to see it there. I think I'll just go with the overhead right here, and then I'll just have to hold it up. So I'm going in with the kind of the teal gold first. And like I said, I know these colors are going to blend together because it's just mixed, so it's not even started to gel. It will be 2 hours, especially the fact that it's, you know, maybe 65 degrees in here. So it's not going to gel for a while. We'll see how far this first batch goes in here. Because what I found the other day was that I could squeeze the sides of the mold and kind of make it blend and mix a little bit. And what I'll do is, once I get it in here, I'll walk over to the front camera, which is on autofocus, and I should be able to put a little more stir on this, show you all the way around in the piece. And I'm going to fill this right up to my stick, and then I'm going to leave it sit off to the side, and we're going to watch and see it as it soaks in. So it looks like I don't need to mix any more at the moment, okay, which is great. Now I can just take it by my little stick here, and I'm going to hold it up and see what it looks like, and I'm going to walk over to the front camera and turn on the front camera because that's the closest shot I can get for you, and we'll see if it'll stay in focus when I carry it over there. There's not a whole lot of light on it here. And if I turn this around, it's really cool because the top looks copper. And so you can't see it real well without enough light on it there. So we'll have to go for another method. I'll show you the top and the side camera. See, my overhead and my end cameras are fixed, but I'm going to pop to the overhead and lift this up. It might go a little out of focus, but with the wood and then the pearl powder, and it must be the iridescent gold is sitting on top. That looks pretty cool. And then it looks gold on the side. Which is, I don't think I can get enough light on this to shine. I'm looking at the other cameras. Oop, don't turn that. No, can't quite show you all of that. So the stick holds it in. I can see already that, and just from me moving it around, that it is ready. And see, it has floated up a little bit, and that's why the stick is in there. Even though in theory it's full of resin. So we're going to add a little bit more to it because it's soaking it up, and there's a tube that's open. and we stop. We don't want to go over the stick. We just want to go to the stick because it runs out the stick holes just a little teeny bit. All right. So I'll set this off to the side. We're going to throw some of this away over here. And that's, you can see that bubbling as it's letting that resin go down inside the chambers, if you will. And that's what I like for a project like this. Now, another thing I could do, if I had a vacuum pump that was working today, I could put this in a vacuum chamber right now and degas it and pull a whole bunch of this air out of here. With a slow cure resin like this, I have the time to put this in a vacuum chamber, pull the air out, and help with my bubble situation, which we're going to see. I've got some voids in this one because I had the vacuum chamber hooked up and I was pulling vacuum next door. So there's a lot of things that we could do to get a better fill on this, and especially putting it in the vacuum chamber and pulling the air out of it, because we put a whole lot of air into this resin when we mixed it up. Okay. And I see that hole right there wants a little bit more while I'm standing here. So we'll just give her another swallow. Again, if I had a super fast setting resin, I couldn't get away with that. So I'm going to set this just again over here to the side and get turning, and then we'll come back and check on this from time to time. I'll put it in the pressure pot when we finish up here because it's just now a little after 12. So it'll be 2 hours easy before that starts to gel. I think I need to turn my fan on, guys. It's starting to finally warm up in here with the lights on. So let me kick my fan on. Move some of these goodies out of the way. Any kind of questions on the 2 stages we've been through so far? Because the next thing we're going to start turning this guy here, see what we come up with. So if you got any kind of questions, and I'm going to give you an overhead shot of that for a minute. So you can see down what the top of that looks like. I'm going to take this guy out of here. So I'm wide open for questions. If anybody's got anything they'd like to know, I will do my best. One end of this, that's amazing. One end of this bar is bigger than the other. Actually, there was just a little notch at the other end. That's what was happening. Put the big old Titan off out of the way. And we'll put the Easy Chuck on. Got the Easy Wood tools with the 2 3/8 inch. Actually, I got the 2 3/8 in here. I want to make the tenon smaller on this one to start with. So I'm actually going to turn this. Can I get this in here this way? Yes. I'm going to turn a smaller tenon on the bottom of this down to 1 3/8. So I have a shoulder, because I have no shoulder right now. You can see here, there's my tenon area, and after I turned it down and cleaned it up today, I've got no shoulder for the top of my jaws to sit on. So I'm going to turn this down to a smaller diameter tenon, and then we'll turn it around and decide what it is I'm going to try and turn out of this guy. I honestly haven't really thought about it too much. I thought about maybe a little hollow form, maybe a lidded box, time depending. It's 12:10. So I've got about 45 minutes to work with here. Maybe I should put the chuck all the way on there, Brad. I don't know what I was not thinking there. That's why we always turn them slow to start. That would have been bad. Pop her up to speed there. Just about 1,000 RPMs. Calipers out. Set them for about 1.5 inches on the 1 3/8 tenon. Sometimes, believe it or not, this resin is only, because the resin's only about 2 days old, it can have a little bit of squish in it when you're, you know what I might do? No, I don't have the jaws in that. Let me see, do I have my Vic mark in here? Yeah. Maybe I'll use the Vic mark and put 2-inch. I think I can do a 2-inch. I'll use the Vic mark. I changed my mind. I think that's what's in here. Yep, all right. We'll use the Vic mark today on the bottom. There we go. That'll be fine. Okay. Let's see how the cameras are looking for. Now the overhead looks good. The end camera looks good. Now things are right where I set them up before. Where is all the banging noise coming from? Still seeing reflection on the window. Kind of confused about the reflection on the window and the banging. The banging might be the fan hitting my mic. If I step back out of the air, out of the breeze, sometimes the fan makes, I'll turn the fan down, makes it sound like banging. You see a reflection of the window. Maybe it's a little skewed. Oh, it's because what's happening is this is yellowish green and the wall is chroma keyed. So the back wall's not really there, so you might see a reflection of the window. That's what's happening. But let me check something else over here on the mixer real quick. Just to make sure. It might look weird here for a second. Okay. The effects are off. Keys off there. And that's being keyed in. That's because that piece is headed for green. It's yellowish green and it's making that reflection. It's trying to show the back wall. You know, you're seeing it right in here. It's funny because I only see it when I look down at the Facebook feed. And this is bugging the bejesus out of me here. So while I'm over here in the control room, I'm going to get something out of my way. Real quick like. Yeah, that's what you're seeing is that reflection. I do believe. That's all I see on Facebook. I don't see the YouTube feed. Okay. Tenon. Do-do-do-do. Hans, what time is it where you were from? Because you're way over there far, far away. Is it tomorrow yet? It's got to be at least cocktail hour. All right, so I think I will leave you in the end view. On YouTube, it looks like tons of tiny bugs moving around. That's interesting. Not sure what the deal is there. Okay, there we go. That'll do what we need. I'll actually use a standard square cutter. Still hearing the rack noise. I have no idea, because there's, other than a little rattle in that chuck, there's no noises going on in the room. Maybe it's Comcast. Something's in the internet. I got ghosts in the machine. Hey, Dreamtime. Thanks for dropping in. Appreciate it. You watch it on both. That's cool. I need to put a little dovetail on here. This is the negative rake detail cutter from Easy Wood. It's the CI7, the little kind of long pony guy. Okay, now we have a real shoulder. See, I didn't have a shoulder before, and the piece would have rattled real bad. This resin, sometimes when it's still raw, seems to flex a little bit, and you get some vibration that you don't necessarily want. So, when I go up to the front camera, do you see all the bugs and the goofy stuff? I have no idea what's going on, what's doing it. I'll get my production manager, Art Miller, on it right away. Art, can you look into that for me and see what's going on? Anything shiny when you have a chroma key going, I think I may even paint this headstock today, and the hand wheel, I'm gonna paint it black. These shiny chucks, they do strange things as well. With the chroma key. So we'll use 3 different chucks today. What's the difference between a resin dye and the powders? Jeff Peters says, well, the resin dye is a tint, and it's formulated for epoxy resin so that it doesn't dilute the resin, the resin colors here. The alcohol dyes, you can only go, I think it's 4%. Somebody who uses them might know that exact number. These you can go a little higher because it's compounded with some of the same chemicals that are in the resin, so to speak. So it's a tint, and you can use a fair bit of it, and it doesn't dilute the resin. The powders are mica powders, be them iridescent or solid color. That just depends on how they do the layers when they actually make the powder. So the powders are synthetic mica, and the resin tint is an actual liquid colorant. You think it's the train going by. We don't have a train. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go to the overhead right here, and you should be able to see this one hole right here? So that's just a void. That was an air pocket that never filled for whatever reason. And then a few more here. And I think that's because I had the mold. Two things happened that caused that. The mold was a little close, the mold was a little snug, and the resin was cold. So even when I poured it, yeah, I can see the, I'm watching the replay in 20-second delay. I can see the chroma key hitting over there. The resin didn't flow real well because it was so cold. I didn't warm it up to room temperature, and so it didn't flow super well. Okay, what do we want to make? Gosh, I don't know. With these holes in it, I'm tempted to want to make a hollow form and let the holes go right through the side, just for fun. And time-wise, what have I got? I got about. I think I'll make the form. I'll make the shape for a hollow form out of this guy. That's what we're going to start with. So we'll work on a form, and that way, if I don't get it hollowed before it's time to wrap it up, well, we'll still have our general look. Because turning the inside of a little hollow form is not all that exciting anyway. Not really. But let's see what we can do. So let's go ahead and start to shape this guy. There we go. And we'll turn to about 1,000 RPMs. Somewhere in there. And I'll put you in the overhead. I'll switch you back and forth between the overhead and the end camera. And again, I'll be using the EasyWood tools with the negative rate cutters. And I'll start out with the mid-size tool with the negative rate cutter in the round. And I'm just going to come in here and take some of this top corner off. I'm kind of curious to see when I get in here. That's a weird looking image right there. I'm kind of curious to see when I get in here just if those other colors show up or not. Yeah, I think what's happening is the chroma key is trying to key on the yellow green. I think I'll speed this up a little bit, see if I can't get a little bit. I thought about making a vase too, actually, the other day out of this. But first we'll just get it cleaned up. All right, it's cool looking wood. It's amazing. That's the reason I love this stuff, is that it was just a rotten limb. Just a rotten limb. And it can look so interesting and so cool. I'm going to turn this cutter just a little teeny bit. I was whaling on it the other day. And I'm going to turn it just a fuzz. I take my ice pick and I clean out the screw head hole. Yeah, the image, the reflection, it's keying the window in the green. I don't know why I always seem to make the mistake frequently, unfortunately, of having yellow green things, and it's trying to key on it, because typically in a chroma key you might run just the green and then key it out later after the fact. But since I have the wall behind me, you get that. And I always forget to think about that. when I cast them up. I got to start casting things in black. Let's see what's down inside of here. So, and also you're getting shiny because of this void that I got. And some of the wood didn't, because it was so punky inside. The thing with stabilizing resin, you can see right here where my finger's at, and I'll point out with the ice pick. So these voids, these bug holes, were way down inside the wood. And even though it was in a pressure pot at 70 psi, stabilizing resin will not fill voids that are down in the wood. You have to rely on your other resin to get in there. Now, depending on what you wanted the look to be, you could come back once you have your final shape here and fill these. And I'm going to show you, I think I'll show you on this today, a way that you can do it. We have a new product, Chromacraft has a new epoxy coming out that's a 1-to-1, and we could fill these if we so desired. And I might just do that today, just to show you. It's coming out, it's not out yet, but I always get to play with the new stuff first. So it's pretty fun. Let me put you on the end for a little bit, give you that view. Now, one thing I'm not going to do today is sand this up because of the sanding dust that gets in all the electronics in here. Let's see how that's looking under there. Some interesting holes in here. Now, what I think I said, I'm going to show you this this new epoxy, and I'm going to use it to fill some of these big voids. And I might do something else with it in the future here. I'll put some solvent on here so you can see what this wood actually looks like. A little bit more shape up here on the top of this guy, simple little guy. And I got to remember to check on our piece over here, see if it's ready for more resin yet or not, and it is. So we'll stop here in a second and we'll do that. We'll put some more resin in our cast. I'll change it back to the overhead there. It's a really cool piece of wood. Again, I've got a little bit more void in there than I wanted. And I'm going to try something here real quick. I didn't bring a change of cutters in. And that other bigger one might be getting a little dull. Now I'm going to leave this a little thick right in here initially while I go inside and start to hollow this out. Since I've got, what time? I'm looking for a time there, 12:30. Okay. So I'm going to go in before this is too thin, and I'm going to take some of the inside out of this, which will open up these holes on the sides. It'll make it quite interesting. But first, let's tend to this other little issue. See if I can show you here. If you can see or not, you know, there's some voids or openings here. So this is ready to take more resin. It's back down below the stick level. And I don't really have anywhere to set it. I'll set it right here and put it on that camera. So it's gone back down. It's soaked in, sucked in. And what I was talking about earlier is that if I squeeze the sides, it kind of helps massage the resin, and I'm hopefully would fill some of these voids that I got over here, like that one. Some of those are pretty good size. And like I said, I could go and fill those now, you know, stop turning and fill those with this other resin and have a different color there. Or I can leave them as openings, and I'm tempted to go for leaving them as openings and see how it does. But I'm going to go ahead and add some more resin into here because we have a little bit left. Yeah, I see when I switch the cameras there, you see the window in the background. It's just keying off of that color and trying to show you the background, the way the key is set up. Okay. So I'll just set this guy back over here. Is Rod Serling working today? Probably. It's wild and crazy out here sometimes. All right, so let's go into the end of this guy. Open him up a little bit. Now you could indeed use a Forstner bit to drill this out, if you were so inclined. I'm just a little teeny bit low there. Oh, you get a great reflection there, so let me turn it up that way. And just so you know, I want you to see this. I'm going to show you before I forget, in case I get late here. I'm going to put some solvent on here just so you can see what the wood looks like when it has if it were to have a finish on it. And it's always nice to test what your wood's going to look like. So we'll go back to the overhead real quick. And I'm just going to wipe this down with some solvent. And it gives you an idea of the color of the wood. And the beauty of the wood is the wood itself has some really light and dark colorations to it. Okay, so that's pretty cool. I know I'll see it pop up on the the delay there in a second. So that's a really pretty piece of wood for an old rotten limb. So people say, you know, why do you take the time to do this? Well, because if it's just my opinion, it just doesn't get any cooler than that. Especially when you get gray windows, you get a pecan grove in the side of your piece because of the chroma key. You know what I'm saying? You don't get that with every show, you know. Not everybody gives you that kind of stuff. We like to do what we can here for you. Okay, so back to the end. And we're going to jump in here and start to drill this out, hollow this out. And about 10 till, I'm going to mix up a little bit of this other resin that's coming out, and I'll show you. And we'll fill a hole or two. It's something I think we're going to really like. I've played with it a little bit, and so far I've been quite pleased. I'm going to raise that tool rest just a fuzz. Number one hollower again. So I hope to have some of the holes cut through. I'm not going to hollow the entire way down in here just because of the time. Think about the thing here is, if you were to use a Forstner bit, you would be resharpening your Forstner bit, because these resins are really hard on cutting tools. And it's a lot easier to replace, less expensive to replace a carbide cutter on a turning tool than it is to wear out your Forstner bit and resharpening it a lot. So again, imagine that rotten piece of wood that I have over here being this hard now that it's been stabilizing. Resin is quite hard. Makes your tools work. I'll still raise that up a little bit more. So it really adds a lot of integrity to what was literally a rotten piece of wood. Although I guess if you're fast at sharpening your Forstner bits, you probably could resharpen them and be happy. Okay, so you get the general idea there. We've run our way down inside here. And I just want to go ahead and take a curve tool now and reach in here and take some of this corner away. And then we'll fill, we'll pick a hole or two to fill here. I would love to leave, I'm on the, change camera, I would love to leave these holes. If this resin has enough integrity to it. I'm not sure because it hasn't cured all that long. It would be pretty cool to have these holes go through the sides. But I'll fill one for sure with the other resin. Let's see what cutters we have on what hollowing tools today. Looks like we'll be using the little micros today. They've got negative rate cutters on them. So you would come in with a curve tool to start reaching around the corner. Now I could reach in there with the straight tool at an angle, but I would have to lean over. If you don't have a curve tool, you can actually get in there and do a lot, but it's really hard to get right up in the top corner. So this is one of the little micro hollowers or mini hollowers from Easywood. I don't have a negative rate cutter right now on the number 2 mid-size, which would be my first choice just because of the larger flat surface area here. That would be my first choice for this. Or even the number 3 with a negative rate cutter on it. I would use that just because I got the flat. It's a more substantial tool. Because this guy's not so small that it warrants this little teeny one. But it's what we have available to us. Jeff says Taunton Press has a book about sharpening by Lee Nielsen. I should get it. Spirecraft is actually a Taunton Press dealer, but we didn't take it out to the shows. So I'm working the very top lip right here. I've gone about maybe a ½ inch around the corner there. Okay. Again, because of the time, I won't go too far. Because it is kind of time consuming to cut, this resin. But that hook tool, curve style tool, allows you to reach around that corner. Dad says put a wedge under the skewer. Actually, the skewer is right at the height that I want it. I want it that tall anyway, and I want more resin in the bottom. So I would rather have the resin at the bottom for strength and not waste it. But yes, you could put a wedge under there. And it would keep it from coming up. This particular one did not float up at all. It didn't come up at none whatsoever. Okay? So I'm almost to that little hole right there. I'm curious, I want to see if just for fun, I want to open it up. I'm watching the time here, trying not to run long. I want to try and maybe just open up through right there, if I can get there without an inordinate amount of time. And right now, the stabilizing resin is harder than the epoxy resin, just because the amount of cure time, and the stabilizing resin was heat cured. And this has been out here. The epoxy's just been out here at room temperature, where it's been, cool. had made this down in here really thin, as thin as it will be, then I would have a hard time getting this hollowed out. So that's why you do the work on the top, and then we'd come back and take out the waste of that and make it really thin. Let's see if I'm getting anywhere close to opening that up yet. Yep, I just can't see through there. See, this resin is still soft. Where's my... Yeah, there's my ice pick going through. Because it hasn't been even above 70 degrees, I don't have a full really hard cure, but that's cool. So I've gotten to that little window right there. I'll turn just a little teeny bit more. Okay. So that would open up nicely for a nice little view. Once that's cured, you can see there. Can't quite poke it from the inside out. All right. Now let me jump out here. So I would just keep on going and going and going till I got down as far down in the neck of this as I wanted to, leaving extra material in the neck, right in through here on the inside, so that I could then taper this down to a more pleasing form. But again, I wanted to leave the strength there right now. Again, I have these holes. This one actually over here, if you can see, this one is opened up nicely. This one goes all the way through. So it's kind of cool in a way to have this piece of wood that was all full of holes to begin with. We filled 90% of them, 95, 99%, whatever you want to figure. And then yet we still have some holes in it, which is kind of the nature of the piece originally. It was full of wormholes. And I know you're getting a crazy reflection there. So to have holes still in the piece after the fact, actually I kind of like. Call me goofy, if you will. So let me get myself out of the picture there for a second. And I'll give you the end camera, so maybe you don't see so much crazy reflection. I'm going to check colors here. On this new epoxy paste, I know I've got metallic blue and I've got gold pearl and I've got royal blue. I've got a few more tubes in the magic drawer. I've got turquoise. So since I didn't get any other turquoise in it, let's put a little fleck of turquoise here and there. Okay. So I need that. And I need a little something to mix on. I hit the wrong button on my controller. I hate it when I do that. So I don't know what they're actually going to call it. Epoxy gel. This is coming from Chromacraft. It's a 1-to-1 epoxy. You've got one hardener and one color, and they're working on the labels. I was just over there the other day. The labels they're working on labels and all for this now. It's pretty slick, and so I'm just going to mix a little bit up. And there's no way for me to show it instantly. Right here, but I'll mix some up on top of this plastic, and we're just going to fill a couple of little holes. It's real handy. So the age-old question of I've got a crack or I've got a void in my bowl, right? How do I fill that? Well, I think this is going to be an excellent answer to that question. So today is the day that our government deems to be officially old and starts sending me pension money. I got a ways to go on that yet. Never. So that's just the hardener. The hardener's clear. And this is turquoise. And I'll mix it over there underneath the camera where you can see. And again, it's a 1-to-1. So let me go to the overhead camera. Put this on top of there. It's kind of a paste, so it doesn't have to be exact. You want it close, but it doesn't have to be exact. Not really much different than mixing, 5-minute from as far as the practice method goes. In practice, how you mix it. But you can make little teeny batches of epoxy resin that you can fill voids, holes, cracks. This could be sucked into a syringe. I'm a big fan of using a syringe. Suck this up into a syringe and then very surgically, for lack of better terms, apply it, poke it, shoot it down into a hole without making a mess. Again, it's super, you see how easy it is, 1-to-1, no cans, it just comes right out of the tube. Spidercraft will be sure and let you know when this is available. It's coming very, very soon. Okay. And since I know I'm going to turn this some more, keep the powder out of there, I'm going to find a hole, let's say right in here. And I should put on a glove, but I'm not going to. This is where the syringe would be perfect, because you can stick the syringe down in there and work that right in. And again, you don't need any more on there than you absolutely have to have. So just take off the excess. Like I said, I am a big fan of syringes. When you go to Walmart pharmacy, ask them for a dosing syringe, and they'll give them to you for free, unless the pharmacist really has an attitude. Yeah, and they work great for this kind of project. Making sure that one, I don't have any, it's got a little air pocket in it. Again, wipe off the excess. And so you could even do this if you were already at the stage where you were ready to, say, sand the piece. You just fill these little teeny pock marks with your resin. This puts a little bit of the turquoise back into this piece that I originally had that seemed to have disappeared when it blended. So I'm really excited about this because then you can do all kinds of things. And I've been dreaming up some other ideas to do with it, other things to do with it. Swirls and drizzles in epoxy over top of another finish, over top of something. Suck it back up into the syringe and then squirt it in a artistic pattern, if you will. Again, you could come in and fill these holes. I don't want to because I want to leave those holes to leave this piece open. This I know I'm going to turn away, so I won't bother filling that. Although I might as well because I've got it on here. Let's see, is there anything in the top that I want to fill? Little teeny spot right there. And that's the beauty. You can pack it right into a little teeny hole. The little teeny pock mark and have a little shot of color. And the excess would sand right off. Same thing right there. Let's put you on the end camera there. So pretty handy for filling little voids. And what I'll do with this piece, because I love the color in there now, the turquoise and the yellow, once I finish hollowing it out and turn the finish, turning the shape down to what it's going to be, then I will go ahead and any little pock marks that are in it that are small that I want to fill, I'll add that second color. And then since I know I'm going to turn on this some more, to give you an idea, maybe see if I got a can of lacquer handy, just what this will look like, a little bit more so than the solvent that was on there. I've got some satin. Like I said, I know I'm going to turn this away, so I'm not worried about it. I just hit it with a little splash of satin lacquer, just to give you an idea of what it would look like. On the wood. This wood is so cool. And we are on the overhead. So when this piece is done, sanded and finished, that's the kind of look we'll have. And I think that's pretty cool. A lot of character in that piece of wood. We get that. If I take that out from underneath, it will actually give a better. The white balance will be a little bit better on the camera. So it's a small piece of wood, and you'll see how that white balance changes here in a second. But really pretty. I mean, that's amazing pretty from a rotten limb. So I am quite pleased with how that looks. And then with our holes and our yellows, and then maybe our turquoise in there, that's going to be a pretty cool thing. And it is 12:59, and I stepped on my shoelace. Put a cap back on my tube here real quick. And we will start to wrap this up. Would I polish this at all with pads? Well, Art, after I finished turning it, and then I sanded it. After I sanded it, because I'm going to do a lacquer finish, I would polish the lacquer. So I would finish the lacquer finish to make this really shiny. So I would use the compounds I use to finish a lacquer finish, which is the 3M compounds, the perfected compounds, and that would polish up the lacquer finish. I wouldn't use the abrasive paste because I'm going to put a film finish on it. If I was going to do a wax finish, then I would use the abrasive paste. That's where the difference is. But for this piece, because of the way it looks, I want to build depth in this, so I'm going to go with a high gloss lacquer. Now this is satin, and it'll dry down satin, but it'll eventually be glossy. So the wax, the abrasive paste I would use for an oil or a wax finish, which I would polish. Otherwise, here I would just sand it and then build up my lacquer, cut my lacquer back, and then add some more lacquer, and that would be how I would finish the piece out. Okay? And our piece over here has achieved full. So it's not taking up any more resin into the piece. So that's pretty cool. So once I sign off today, I will drop it into the pressure pot and put the air to it and let her sit overnight. And then it really is best to let things cure, 48, 72 hours in these resins before you start to turn on them. So I'm in no hurry to turn on that one, and I'm going to actually let this one sit a little bit longer before I finish turning on it. So that was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a good time. If you have any questions, shoot me notes. Anything you want to know about. Don't forget, if you're interested in getting some of the epoxy resin, some of the colors, some of the tints, the codes, the discount codes are on the group page. If you're not a member yet of the Monday Methods Wood and Resin Turning Community Group, jump over there, and Art, who is also helping me as a moderator, or myself will let you in. Or if you've been invited in and haven't accepted yet, jump in there, and then you can save 15% on resin today and 5% on all the vacuum chambers and pumps and all that good stuff. So if you need some supplies, we're here to help you out, and those codes last for today because you are part of Monday Methods. I thank everybody very much. Look forward to next Monday Methods. We'll try to do the meeting. We did a meeting on Friday this last week, and it was fun. We got off to a start. Now we're out of town. I'm out of town late this week, so I won't be able to do that. But I might be able to do it Wednesday night, depending on what my day is like, how it finishes out. Nick Aguiar is going to be over here all day Wednesday with me in the studio, and I don't know how late we're going to go. But I will see you for sure next Monday. I'll be posting things in the Monday Methods group, and of course on Spiracraft, Instagram, and all that good stuff. So thank you everybody for coming out and joining me today. I had a ball. I hope you learned some new techniques that can help you out. Again, if you ever have questions, comments, emails, message, it's all good. Get a hold of me. Everybody be safe, take care, and I will see you next week. Now close you out with an overhead.